If I had to define tolerance, it would be something like respect and kindness towards members of an outgroup. And today we have an almost unprecedented situation. We have a lot of people, like the Emperor, boasting of being able to tolerate everyone from every outgroup they can imagine, loving the outgroup, writing long paeans to... There's no fucking way paeans is pronounced like that. To how great the outgroup is. Staying up at night fretting that somebody else might not like the outgroup enough. This is really surprising. It's a total reversal of everything we know about human psychology up to this point. No one did any genetic engineering. No one passed out weird glowing pills in the public schools. And yet suddenly we get an entire group of people who conspicuously promote and defend their outgroups. The outer the better. What is going on here? Let's start by asking what exactly an outgroup is. There's a very boring sense in which, assuming the Emperor's straight, gays are part of his outgroup, i.e., a group that he's not a member of. But if the Emperor has curly hair, are straight-haired people part of his outgroup? If the Emperor's name starts with the letter A, are people whose names that start with the letter B part of his outgroup? Nah. I would differentiate between multiple different meanings of outgroup, where one is a group you are not a part of, and the other is something stronger. I want to avoid a very easy trap, which is saying that outgroups are about how different you are, or how hostile you are. I don't think that's quite right. Compare the Nazis to the German Jews and to the Japanese. The Nazis were very similar to the German Jews. They looked the same, spoke the same language, came from a similar culture. The Nazis were totally different from the Japanese. Different race, different language, vast cultural gap. But the Nazis and the Japanese mostly got along pretty well. Heck, the Nazis were actually moderately positively disposed to the Chinese, even when they were technically at war. Meanwhile, the conflict between the Nazis and the German Jews, some of whom didn't even realize they were anything other than German until they checked their grandparents' birth certificate, is the stuff of history and nightmares. Any theory of outgroupishness that naively assumes the Nazis' natural outgroup is Japanese or Chinese people will be totally inadequate. And this isn't a weird exception. Freud spoke of the narcissism of small differences, saying that it is precisely communities with adjoining territories and related to each other in other ways as well, who are engaged in constant feuds and ridiculing each other. Nazis and German Jews, Northern Irish Protestants and Northern Irish Catholics, Hutus and Tutsis, South African whites and South African blacks, Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs, anyone in the former Yugoslavia and anyone else in the former Yugoslavia. So what makes an outgroup? Proximity plus small differences. If you want to know who someone in former Yugoslavia hates, don't look at the Indonesians or the Zulus or the Tibetans or anyone else distant and exotic. Find the Yugoslavian ethnicity that lives closely intermingled with them and is most conspicuously similar to them, and chances are you'll find the one who they have 800 years of seething hatred toward. What makes an unexpected in-group? The answer with Germans and Japanese is obvious: a strategic alliance. In fact, the world wars forged a lot of unexpected, temporary, pseudo-friendships. A recent article from War Nerd points out that the British, after spending centuries subjugating and despising the Irish and Sikhs, suddenly needed Irish and Sikh soldiers for World Wars I and II respectively. Crush them beneath our boots. quickly changed to fawning songs about how there never was a coward where the shamrock grows, and endless paeans to seek military prowess. Sure, scratch the paeans even a little bit, and you find condescension as strong as ever, but 800 years of the British committing genocide against the Irish and considering them literally subhuman turned into smiles and songs about shamrocks once the Irish started looking like useful cannon fodder for a larger fight. And the Sikhs, dark-skinned people with turbans and beards who pretty much exemplify the European stereotype of scary foreigner, were lauded by everyone from the news media all the way up to Winston Churchill. In other words, outgroups may be the people who look exactly like you, and scary foreigner types can become the in-group on a moment's notice when it seems convenient. 3. There are certain theories of dark matter where it barely interacts with the regular world at all, such that we could have a dark matter planet exactly coincident with the Earth and never know. Maybe dark matter people are walking all around us and through us. Maybe my house is in the Times Square of a great dark matter city. Maybe a few meters away from me, a dark matter blogger is writing on his dark matter computer about how weird it would be if there was a light matter person he couldn't see right next to him. This is sort of how I feel about conservatives. I don't mean the sort of light matter conservatives who go around complaining about big government and occasionally voting for Romney. I see those guys all the time. What I mean is, well, take creationists. According to Gallup polls, about 46% of Americans are creationists. Not just in the sense of believing God helped guide evolution. I mean, they think evolution is a vile atheist lie and God created humans exactly as they exist right now. That's half the country. And I don't have a single one of those people in my social circle. It's not because I'm deliberately avoiding them. I'm pretty live and let live politically. I wouldn't ostracize someone just for some weird beliefs. And yet, even though I probably know 150 people, I am pretty confident that not one of them is creationist. Odds of this happening by chance? 1 divided by 2 to the power of 150 equals 1 divided by 10 to the power of 45 equals approximately the chance of picking a particular atom if you are randomly selecting among all the atoms on Earth. About 40% of Americans want to ban gay marriage. I think if I really stretch it, maybe 10 of my top 150 friends might fall into this group. This is less astronomically unlikely. The odds are a mere 1 to 100 quintillion against. People like to talk about social bubbles, but that doesn't even begin to cover 100 quintillion. The only metaphor that seems really appropriate is the bizarre dark matter world. I live in a Republican congressional district in a state with a Republican governor. The conservatives are definitely out there. They drive on the same roads as I do, live in the same neighborhoods, but they might as well be made of dark matter. I never meet them. To be fair, I spend a lot of time inside on my computer. I'm browsing sites like Reddit. Recently, there was a thread on Reddit asking, "Redditors against gay marriage, what is your best supporting argument?" A Reddit user who didn't understand how anybody could be against gay marriage honestly wanted to know how other people who were against it justified their position. He figured he might as well ask one of the largest sites on the internet, with an estimated user base in the tens of millions. It soon became clear that nobody there was actually against gay marriage. There were a bunch of posts saying, I of course support gay marriage, but here are some reasons some other people might be against it. A bunch of others saying, my argument against gay marriage is the government shouldn't be involved in the marriage business at all. And several more saying, why would you even ask this question? There's no possible good argument and you're wasting your time. About halfway through the thread, someone started saying homosexuality was unnatural, and I thought they were going to be the first one to actually answer the question. But at the end they added, but it's not my place to decide what is or isn't natural. I'm still pro-gay marriage. In a thread with 10,401 comments, a thread specifically asking for people against gay marriage, I was eventually able to find 2 people who came out and opposed it, way near the bottom. Their posts started with, I know I'm going to be downvoted to hell for this. But I'm not only on Reddit, I also hang out on Less Wrong. On last year's survey, I found that of American less wrongers who identify with one of the 2 major political parties, 80% are Democrat and 20% Republican, which actually sounds pretty balanced compared to some of these other examples. But it doesn't last. Pretty much all of those Republicans are libertarians who consider the GOP the lesser of 2 evils. When allowed to choose libertarian as an alternative, only 4% of visitors continued to identify as conservative. But that's still some, right? When I broke the numbers down further, 3 percentage points of those are neo-reactionaries, a bizarre sect that wants to be ruled by a king. Only 1% of less wrongers were normal, everyday, God and guns, but not George III conservatives, of the type that seem to make up about half of the United States. It gets worse. My formative years were spent at a university which, if it was similar to other elite universities, had a faculty and a student body that skewed about 90 to 10 liberal to conservative, and we can bet that, like Less Wrong, even those few token conservatives are Mitt Romney types, rather than God and guns types. I get my news from Vox.com, an official liberal-approved site. Even when I go out to eat, it turns out my favorite restaurant, California Pizza Kitchen, is the most liberal restaurant in the United States. I inhabit the same geographical area as scores and scores of conservatives. But without meaning to, I have created an outrageously strong bubble. A 10 to the 45th bubble. Conservatives are all around me, and yet I'm about as likely to have a serious encounter with one as I am a Tibetan Lama. Less likely, actually. One time, a Tibetan Lama came to my college and gave a really nice presentation, but if a conservative tried that, people would protest it, and it would be cancelled.